Welcome to Things, the video series where I explain music production tools and techniques in a concise and easy to understand way. Today we're talking about compression. I'm using Neutron 4 Compressor because it's really visual and you can see what's going on. Compression is one of the most useful and common production tools that we have. Basically, the goal of a compressor is to limit the dynamic range of whatever's going into it. So if we have something that's too quiet and we want to make it loud, we can do that. If we have something that's too loud and we want to make just the loud parts quieter, we can do that. It's basically just taking an audio signal and kind of squashing it. So we're starting out with one band like a normal compressor. We have a few controls to work with. You have a threshold control, which tells the compressor how loud you want the signal to be before it will start compressing it. You have a ratio control, which changes how much you're compressing at the threshold. You have an attack control, which changes how long it takes to react to changes in the audio. And then you have a release control, which tells it how long to release that change in volume after the peak. So let's bypass this. Let's listen to what we have. We have a nice plucky little synth. If we turn it on, nothing's going to happen because our threshold is too high. But say if we bring it down, we can see it's going to start compressing because we have some changes in the volume here. And this shows in real time how much it's compressing the volume of the signal. So if we want to change how much it's compressing, we can decrease or increase the ratio. We can also change the attack. And you can see now it takes longer for it to respond to changes in the audio. Or we can change the release. Which makes it take longer for the audio to get back to the normal level. If we want something super punchy, we can decrease the attack and release and increase the ratio. And if we compare that to the original, it's much punchier. Now we also have a couple other controls here. We have an input gain control and an output gain control. These will both make the sound either louder or quieter depending on how you have them set, but in different ways. If you increase the input gain, it'll make the signal louder going into the compressor, so it'll actually compress more. Alternatively, if you adjust the output gain, it basically just makes the output louder. Now you know what compression looks like, we can move to multi-band compression. So now we have 3 bands of compression, which is pretty normal for a multi-band. We have lows, mids, and highs. And now we can change the individual controls for each band of the frequency spectrum. So say you want just the highs to be punchy, you could do that. A lot of people will use this to change the levels of each band of the spectrum to change how their signal sounds. So on a synth like this, what I might do is change this back to pretty much normal, where we have no compression on the mids or the lows. So you can see there's no compression going on. But I'm going to drop the threshold on this, so it starts compressing the highs. I'm going to decrease the attack and the release, and increase the ratio, and then we're going to adjust the makeup. So now we can hear just the high end of the signal is really punchy. And if we compare that to the original, you can hear a pretty big difference. And we can do that for any frequency range. We can adjust these all individually to make each part of the sound compress however we want. So let's do that. So now you can see each subdivision of the frequency spectrum is being compressed differently. I compressed and boosted the bass so that it has a little more low end. I didn't compress the mids much, but I did a little bit just to glue it in. And I kept the highs where they were when we compressed them before. So now we get a very, very punchy and bassy sound, as opposed to before when it was very flat sounding. Now you can use this either on individual tracks in your song to make them sound different. A lot of times people will use them on drums to make them sound really punchy, guitar or bass to sound really tight. A lot of times they'll be used on vocals to make sure that the level stays pretty consistent on top of the mix so that no words are drowned out or way too loud. And then a lot of people will use them either during mixing or mastering to kind of glue the mix together, especially a multiband compressor like this. And just so you know, there are a lot of compressors. I'm using that one because it's very visual, but you could also use something like Fruity Compressor that's built into your DAW, or Fruity Multiband Compressor if you want to do the 3 bands like I did before. We're going to go into one of my songs to see how I used it on the master track. So here's the verse section of my song. I've turned OTT, which is a multiband compressor, off, so it's not doing anything. You might notice the mix is lacking a bit of punchiness, so I'm going to enable OTT and we'll see how that changes things. You can hear it especially in the high end, it's compressing it quite a bit. So let's turn it off and compare how it sounds. So you can hear it not only adds a lot of definition in the high end, because I have it compressing the high end and boosting it a little bit, but also it just kind of glues everything together and makes it seem a little more punchy and intentionally put together. Let's look at another song to see how I used it on vocals. Here I used a compressor to make my vocals always a very similar level. So let's see what they sound like with and without a compressor.
The air feels cold tonight, but I have you by my side. Turn around, look to the sky, and realize it's all we can do now to escape from the reality. Turn around, look me in the eyes, and feel alive.
So not only is it compressing the signal, it's also boosting the level of the signal. So it's making it both louder and have less dynamic range. So that the difference between the softer notes and louder notes is a lot less. Let's hear another song where I used it on drums. I used it on the room mic of this drum set to make it sound really, really beefy and compressed. So let's listen to it with and without compression. So that's with and without compression. You can really hear the difference, especially in the quieter parts. They're brought up a lot with the compressor. I also used OTT on the master track, which is a multi-band compressor. And it really glues the mix together as well, just like in the last song. So let's take a listen. So it makes a pretty good difference in the dynamic range of the song, and it makes it sound a lot punchier. So that's how we can use compressors in music production. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If it was, leave a thumbs up or a comment. If you have any other questions, please comment them down below, and I will either answer them in a comment or If it's involved enough, I might even make a video about it. Thanks, hope this was helpful. Peace.